Vocabulary plays a major role in the design of curriculum across different approaches. As we look in this chapter, we will consider the role of vocabulary. This is Kizaya Marie Tabamo, and in this moment, we will be learning a vocabulary approach. Before starting, we have objectives to be followed in this discussion. First, we have to define what is vocabulary. Second, what is the English vocabulary? Third, what are the issues in second language vocabulary learning? Fourth, how to plan for vocabulary instruction. Fifth, the vocabulary development and the four skills. And lastly, knowing the vocabulary learning strategy. Now let us begin our discussion by defining vocabulary. According to Falls 2004, vocabulary is more than a list of single words. It also includes phrases, idioms, and phrasal verbs. To this end, vocabulary can be defined to include all of the following. A. All of the words of a language. B. The sum of words that are used by, understood by, or at the command of the particular person or group. C. A list of words or phrases or formulaic expressions arranged in some logical fashion. Or D. A repertoire of communication possibilities to include words and their collocations. A collocation can be defined as the habitual juxtaposition of a particular word with another word or words with frequency greater than chance, for example, to take a risk or to do homework. In English language, collocation refers to a natural combination of words that are closely affiliated with each other. Some examples are pay attention, fast food, make an effort, and powerful engine. These juxtapositions are determined nowadays most frequently by looking at corpora, for example, samples of real-world texts, that are derived through the use of an automated process. Determining how words are used and juxtaposed with other words is an important feature of second language vocabulary instruction. For example, while the phrases have rain, strong rain, and big rain are all technically grammatically correct combinations, an examination of corpora would confirm heavy rain to be the most frequently used phrase among proficient users of English. Thus, it would be the appropriate collocation. The use of corpora for identifying technical vocabulary and determining the characteristics of a specific genre for genre-based approaches to curriculum design is becoming much more common than it was in the past. In addition, corpora are also being used by teachers and curriculum designers in other ways, for example, to teach grammar and vocabulary. Vocabulary differs relative to the difficulty it presents for learning, depending on the learner's orientation to the vocabulary on whether the vocabulary word being learned is an unknown word for a known concept, an unknown word for an unknown concept, a known word for an unknown concept, a known word for an unknown concept, or a known or unknown word that can cover more than one concept. For example, in one context, a young English learner may be studying about plants in a content and language integrated course and learning about the process of photosynthesis, like using sunlight to synthesize food from carbon dioxide and water, for the first time. In this case, the English learner would be learning a previously unknown word for a previously unknown concept. In a different context, beginning language proficiency adult learners in a non-academic context may be learning the basic vocabulary for describing clothes in English. The concepts are already known, So the task is simply to learn the vocabulary for referencing clothing. In a lesson in a biology class, an English learner may come across the word palm in reference to trees and be confused because previous experience with the word palm has been in reference to the inner surface of the hand. In the biology class, palm is used to refer to a particular type of tree, a palm tree. For the English learner, in the context of a biology class, palm was a known word, but it was being used to refer to a concept that was not known by the learner. Similarly, the word skirt would be familiar to an adult learner as a common piece of clothing. However, in a vocational program that focuses on an automotive repair, skirt is not a piece of clothing, but it is a cover for the rear fender cutout or a portion of the piston. Nation 2005 lists various types of knowledge that are involved in knowing a word. These types of knowledge fit into three categories. Knowing a word involves knowing its form, example, spelling, pronunciation, and word parts. B. Meaning, example, the concept that the word represents, what it can and cannot refer to, what other words are related to it. And C. The use, example, the part of speech, the sentence patterns it fits into, and its collocations. Given the diversity of meanings associated with defining vocabulary, it is easy to see why designing curriculum to teach vocabulary to second language learners has been described as a complex task. Now let us move on to the English vocabulary. There are some general pieces of knowledge about English vocabulary that can aid curriculum designers and teachers in making choices about what vocabulary to include in a course or program and how to do it. These two important pieces of information are related to A. English etymology, for example, the origin of words and where they come from, and B. The use of frequency word lists, according to Nation 2005. English vocabulary comes from two major sources, the Germanic or the Anglo-Saxon or Old English, and Latin, which came into English indirectly through French after the Norman invasion of England in 1066. Curriculum designers need to be knowledgeable about the origins of English words and how they interact with the frequency of words in English. The main source of high-frequency words in English is Anglo-Saxon, with Germanic words making up 97% of the most frequent 100 words in English, 57% of the first 1,000, 39% of the second 1,000, and 36% of the remaining words. On the other hand, Latin words make up only 3% of the first 100 most frequent words, but they make up 36% of the first 1,000 most frequent words and 51% of the second 1,000. Overall, Latin words make up over 90% of the words in the Academic Word List or AWL. Academic vocabulary is therefore based more on Latin and Greek roots than is everyday spoken English vocabulary. Therefore, word study activities that specifically focus on academic vocabulary can be very helpful in acquiring Latin and Greek words and roots. In addition to the use of academic vocabulary, academic lectures and texts tend to use longer, more complex sentences than are used in spoken English. Nation 2005-2010 considers the frequency counts of these different types of words and makes the following recommendations for second language vocabulary instruction. Because there are between 1,500 and 2,000 high-frequency words that are most important. West 1953, he recommends that second language learners be taught these high-frequency words early on and as quickly as possible. Nation recommends that teachers and curriculum designers focus on helping English learners with vocabulary learning strategies so that they can be successful in acquiring the large numbers of technical and low frequency words that they will encounter. For courses in which English learners must work with challenging academic content with large numbers of Latin words, centering instruction on strategies that target word study through affixation, for example, learning the meanings of prefixes and suffixes and recognizing them in words, would be a logical application for a nation's recommendation. And now let us move on to the issues in second language vocabulary learning. FALS 2004 identifies several myths about teaching vocabulary to English learners. Identifying these myths is important as they have the potential to influence the choices that teacher and curriculum designers make when selecting vocabulary for inclusion in lessons, courses, and programs and determining how vocabulary should be taught. The first myth that many language practitioners embrace is that grammar plays a more important role in foreign language learning than vocabulary. While using incorrect grammatical constructions can certainly interfere with communication, selecting the wrong vocabulary words prevents the intended message from getting across. Therefore, the focus for instructional materials, even at the very early levels of language proficiency, should include appropriate and meaningful vocabulary, opportunities for the development of learners' vocabulary, and strategies for vocabulary learning. A second myth is that word lists are not useful. The use of word lists can be an effective strategy, especially for beginning level proficiency students who can benefit from working with short lists of words and simple definitions or synonyms. Text that includes gloss words and their meanings are the most useful for second language learners when working with new concepts and words. Word lists do not promote a deeper knowledge of vocabulary, but they do aid in the memory retrieval process, making it possible to access new words more rapidly. This fact is especially evident when it is possible to access new words more readily. This fact is especially evident when the vocabulary in lists is used in both written and oral communication strategies. Teachers and curriculum designers must remember that while word lists can be useful, they cannot be the only source of vocabulary learning. The third and the next myth concerns the use of semantic sets for introducing vocabulary. Semantic sets are groups of words that all fit into the same semantic category. The most common way of introducing vocabulary at the beginning proficiency levels is through semantic sets such as days of the week, clothes, sports, transportation, colors, rooms in house, food, to name a few. However, second language learners have difficulty remembering words taught through semantic sets. So, teachers and curriculum designers need to explore other ways to presenting vocabulary. The next is that translation can sometimes be useful for English language learners as a personal choice. Second language learners who were exposed to the words and their corresponding translations had better test scores than second language informants who were exposed to words and their corresponding pictures. This finding is not meant to suggest that translation be included in the design of a course or curriculum. However, if it is a learner's request or choice, it should not provoke negative feedback from teachers. A quick translation from a teacher or peer can lead to a comprehension of more than just a word, especially if the word is pivotal in understanding a text and is a form of scaffolding. The next myth is that while guessing the meaning of vocabulary in context can be a useful reading strategy, especially for second language learners at the advanced level and native speakers. It is not an effective vocabulary learning strategy, particularly for learners who with low levels of language proficiency. While contextual cues may be prevalent in authentic materials, they are often missing from texts that are used for English language learners. Even if contextual clues are present, second language learners must know the vocabulary associated with the context. Teachers and curriculum designers should remember that second language vocabulary should be taught and practiced. Another myth is that good second language learners need to employ only a few strategies to help them learn new second language words. In fact, second language learners need a variety of vocabulary learning strategies. And these strategies should be taught, practiced, and included in the design of a course or curriculum. Vocabulary learning strategies include such activities as auditory rehearsal, for example, repeating information over and over again, either in one's mind or aloud. Keyword imagery, for example, visually descriptive or figurative language, and word study. The seventh myth is that only monolingual dictionaries should be used in language classes. False 2004 argues that the use of bilingual dictionaries should be encouraged in the design of courses and curricula. The last myth concerns the purposeful teaching of vocabulary. False 2004 states that it is a myth to believe that second language vocabulary does not need to be taught and that second language learners will pick it up simply by exposure to written text or oral language. Course and curriculum designers, as well as teachers, must incorporate the purposeful teaching of vocabulary and the use of vocabulary learning strategies in the design process for all proficiency levels in all contexts. Now let us proceed to the planning for vocabulary instruction. Nation 2018 asserts that teachers and curriculum designers should plan for vocabulary learning just as they plan for other aspects of curriculum design, and he makes the following fundamental recommendations. First, determine the number and type of words that should be targeted for student learning. In order to make this determination, it is important to consider four different classes of vocabulary words. First, high-frequency words. Second, academic words. Third, technical words or words related to a specific topic. And lastly, low-frequency words. It is also important to select words from each of the categories. High-frequency words, which include function and some content words, should be given priority in beginning proficiency level classes. Targeting fewer words and working with these words in depth is better for retention than targeting more words and providing fewer opportunities for practice. Second, incorporate the psychological processes used in learning when teaching vocabulary. These processes included the following. A. Helping second language learners notice targeted vocabulary in the input in either spoken or written form and getting them to attend to targeted vocabulary by giving them multiple exposure to the vocabulary. B. Providing multiple opportunities to retrieve targeted vocabulary. And C. Promoting the creative use of targeted vocabulary by providing opportunities to use new vocabulary in new contexts. The more deliberate the attention that learners give to words, the more likely it is that these words will be learned. Third, space out vocabulary learning. Second language vocabulary learning is a cumulative process that entails learning form, meaning, and uses. Teaching a second language vocabulary should be spaced out over time so that it is possible to focus on each part of the process and avoid information overload. Vocabulary instruction that is spaced out allows learners to explore the forms, meanings, and uses of vocabulary more in depth, which is not possible when all of these types of language are introduced and practiced in a single teaching encounter. Now let us proceed to the vocabulary development and the four skills. Second language learners develop knowledge about vocabulary based on the different ways in which they learn it. Although it is important that vocabulary be taught to second language learners explicitly, it is also important for curriculum designers to remember that vocabulary can also be learned incidentally through all of the four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening and speaking. Teachers and curriculum designers should plan listening and speaking activities to increase learners' repertoire of words. In addition, listening activities that focus on vocabulary development should include interesting content and provide opportunities for learners to receive input that involves them in negotiating meaning with their peers. For example, listening to stories can be useful in building vocabulary if the story is interesting, comprehensible, and involves a certain degree of repetition. Speaking activities that provide learners with opportunities to work together cooperatively can be valuable, especially if the activities involve problem-solving activities and role plays, which give learners opportunities to recycle important vocabulary and use it both receptively and productively. Eliciting specific vocabulary from students can be achieved through the use of semantic maps. Semantic maps are graphic organizers, and their purpose is to display visually and connections between words, phrases, and concepts to assist learners in understanding and recalling information. The use of semantic maps is meant to focus second language learners on specific vocabulary and give them opportunities to explain and justify connections in the semantic map. Reading and writing. In addition to listening and speaking, reading and writing can promote learners' vocabulary enrichment. Second language teachers should select reading materials that are appropriate to the level of their students. Nation 2018 states that materials for language learners should include graded readers, especially at beginning levels of language proficiency. Even though graded readers are criticized because they are not authentic, for example, texts that are used in real-world contexts outside of the classroom, Nation argues that they can play an important role in the development of second language vocabulary. Most academic English learners will also need a transition to working with unmodified texts. When unmodified texts are used, teachers will likely need to adjust instruction and focus on guiding learners through the text by using glosses and visuals such as pictures, graphs, and maps, which contribute to text comprehensibility for second language learners and should be included in the design of curriculum. A lack of vocabulary and knowledge most certainly gets in the way of being able to enjoy reading a text, but it is also one of the main difficulties of second language learners have when writing in the target language. Therefore, teachers should encourage learners to see writing tasks as opportunities to expand their second language vocabulary. And now let us move on to the vocabulary learning strategies. In order to deal with a large number of vocabulary items in the lexicon, second language learners need to develop strategies. These strategies need to be taught and developed in the classroom using high-frequency words so that learners can use the strategies independently to deal with the thousands of low-frequency words that they will encounter over time. Nation 2005 identifies 4 important vocabulary learning strategies. A. Inferring meanings from context. B. Learning from word cards. C. Using word parts. And D. Using dictionary. Second language learners need guidance and opportunities to develop skills and with these strategies. Vocabulary strategy instruction is an important component in the curriculum design process. Acquiring vocabulary involves more than looking up words in a dictionary, memorizing lists of words, and using them sentences. Vocabulary often plays a major role in second language instruction and is frequently the key organizational feature of a curriculum around which other aspects of the curriculum design revolve, such as grammatical structures or instructional tasks. That's all for my report, and thank you for listening.